Welcome once again. We're so glad you could join us for another episode of The Catholic View for Women here on EWTN. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with my co-hosts, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez and Janet Morana. And once again, the last few shows, including this one, we've been talking about some pretty mature topics. And so we just want to remind you that we are going to give you another little disclaimer here for viewer discretion, because we're talking about a very, very sensitive topic. And this topic is called spiritual friendship. What is it? What it isn't, and what does the Catholic Church have to say about it? And this is something that we're hearing an awful lot about in our culture right now. The culture in so many different ways tries to justify or make okay things that we know that go against church teaching. And sometimes it happens with people even who think they have the best of intentions, but it can get very confusing and it can get very challenging, which is why, again, we want you to watch us here at EWTN to see what the church has to say and the experts in the church have to say about this. So, Astrid, you have a really good quote about spiritual friendship from Dr. Rachel Liu, who we're going to hear from in just a few minutes, who's a professor of philosophy who also spoke at that Courage conference that Janet and I attended last year.
It's from the book Living the Truth in Love, Pastoral Approaches to Same-Sex Attraction, edited by Janet Smith and Father Paul Chek. So she attempts in this essay to define what spiritual friendship is, and she says the following: they, the spiritual attraction movement, earnestly wish to answer the following question: is there a particular orientation or identity that is defined by same-sex attraction, which is nevertheless in itself a good and naturally ordered toward a unique sort of fulfillment? In the affirmative, in a way that they hope also harmonizes with Catholic teaching. They try to articulate ways in which being gay and Catholic, quote unquote, might in fact be a distinctive good. And she goes on to say the spiritual friendship movement thus subdivides eros in such a way that while they acknowledge that same-sex sexual behavior is wrong, they claim that same-sex attraction is not truly disordered, and this is dangerous.
And so we sat down with her at the Courage conference, and Courage, again, is a ministry that works with brothers and sisters and the parents of those with same-sex attraction, and we'll have the website for Courage, as we had on previous episodes, on our website at thecatholicviewforwomen.com. But we sat down with Dr. Rachel Liu, who is actually professor of philosophy, as I said, at St. Thomas University in St. Paul, Minnesota, to ask her about this topic of spiritual friendship, which is getting a lot of discussion out there on the Catholic blogs, in Catholic books and articles, where people trying to say that this is okay, and she explains why it's not.
One of the things we need to understand today is that chastity is really about more than just what we do or whether we have sex with another person. Chastity is about our whole way of living, our way of thinking, our way of being, and as Catholics, we should want to be chaste in as completely as possible in our thoughts as well as in our actions. So one of the concerns that I had with this approach to same-sex attraction, which I found embodied in a lot of thinkers from the Spiritual Friendship blog and some other writers, one of the concerns I had about it is that it just seems like they want to approach erotic attraction in such a way that they only count the things that they do. So as long as I have a really intimate relationship with a person and I'm not having sex with that person, then maybe it's okay if I'm erotically attracted to them. Maybe it's okay if we have a special sort of relationship between the two of us. And I think one of the problems with that approach is that, first of all, it's not taking into account the way that erotic attraction is a very difficult thing to control. It has a certain sort of direction that it aims. What it really is a drive towards procreation. But when we don't respect the kind of advice that we've been given by Catholic tradition, by the Church Fathers, it has a tendency to develop in directions that are not healthy and that don't fulfill our spiritual good. And so that's one of the reasons why it's really important for erotic attraction to be disciplined and for us to take seriously the things the Church has told us about what that kind of attraction, what that kind of love is really for. And one of the things that I discuss in my paper is the way in which, although feelings are complicated, although situations are complicated, in a certain way, really, it boils down to two decisions that they're sort of two ethical choices that we can make when we feel erotically attracted to a person. Either we can choose not to develop that attraction. And of course, we can't just turn our feelings off like a spigot, right? We can't just decide, oh, I don't want to feel this way anymore, so I just won't. But we can make decisions when we feel ourselves attracted to a person. We can make the decision not to encourage that, not to lie around daydreaming about that person, not to put ourselves in proximity to that person regularly, not to do things that would encourage that attraction. So that's one ethical choice that we can make. The other ethical choice that we can make is, I'm in for a penny and I'm in for a pound. I'm going to be a responsible procreator with this person, right? We're going to get married, we're going to raise a family together. That's the other ethical way to respond to erotic attraction. And that's the funny thing, right? As complicated as our feelings are, those are really the only two ethical choices that we have. We can pursue marriage and procreation, or we can do what's in our power to not encourage those kinds of attractions. Those are really the only two directions that you can go that are ethical and that are in keeping with the real meaning of erotic attraction and romantic love. So I think when we're trying to pick apart the different elements of romantic attraction in order to include just the ones that we want, right? This makes me feel really good about this person. When I'm romantically attracted to a person, then I appreciate the good in them. I want to serve them. I want to make their life better. So those seem like good things, right? And then we recognize that the desire for sexual fulfillment is in this context not a good thing. So when we try to pick those things apart, sort of dissect them and seize on the ones that we think are good and let lie the ones that we think are bad, it's just not something that's ultimately going to be successful, right? We don't really have that ability to make erotic attraction into exactly the thing that we want it to be. And I think that's one of the things that we need to appreciate when we're trying to engage in this sort of project, exploring this middle ground between ethical pursuit of procreative marital love and something that we would all recognize to be very obviously unchaste. The middle ground is not as present as a lot of these people seem to think that it is. I think people who have already been in an unchaste relationship can't reasonably expect that they could just change that whole situation overnight and continue living together. I think it's probably true. So it's definitely true that all people need friends, and I think all people really crave same-sex companionship. So it's going to be a reasonable goal for same-sex attracted people to have fulfilling same-sex friendships, but you have to be realistic about what you can really do and control, right? A person who you've already been in an unchaste relationship with is probably not a good candidate for a roommate and intimate friend, right? Or a person that you know that you're powerfully romantically attracted to, probably not a good candidate for your immediate best friend. So I think people just need to be realistic about what's actually possible for them in that respect. I think the first thing is we have to understand that the church's teachings about chastity are so countercultural nowadays that you have to be talking with your children about this frequently and from a pretty early age, and this idea of chastity needs to be a theme that you keep coming back to with them throughout their adolescence, because we really have gotten well past the point where chastity, you don't have the sex talk anymore. This is not a one-time thing where you sit down at the table and explain the facts of life. We've reached the point where understanding chastity and what it is needs to be a continual theme for you with your teenagers, something that you're talking about in lots of contexts. And beyond that, you just have to try to help your kids at the various stages of life find positive goals and focus on positive commitments throughout their adolescence and beyond.
I really appreciated what you said about the way the culture is just people are just being inundated and steeping in this stuff. And then she also said that what we believe is so countercultural that in this whole idea of chastity is not just based on action, it's based on being who we are as brothers and sisters in Christ. And Astrid, I know you wanted to pick up on something.
This approach that she mentions, the spiritual friendship, it's, I mean, obviously it might have a good intention, to try to understand how to help people with same-sex attraction, but she's saying it's misguided. For example, somebody who is living with someone that is they're unchaste with, somebody of same sex, can't just say, well, now we're going to be spiritual friends and continue to live together. She just feels it's not realistic, not prudent.
Right. Well, you're putting yourself in a near occasion of sin.
Exactly.
Well, that's the same advice they give, a priest would give to a couple who's engaged and they come for them for the pre-Cana discussions and all that before marriage. Well, if they're living together, one of the first things the priest tells them is, you got to move out. Someone has to move out and get out. You can't just live and I'll sleep on the couch and you just have the bedroom. No, you're in that. Yes, you've already had sex together. Now you have to stop. Well, it's the same advice here.
Exactly.
Not putting yourself in that situation.
Yeah, when she says you can't change overnight, she just means you have that inclination. Where your weak spot is.
So don't put yourself in that situation again, and also to avail yourself of the sacraments.
Confession.
And because we also heard from the young man in a few episodes ago talking about his situation with chastity and pornography.
Right.
And he said he did fall a few times, but he always went back to confession, realizing that what he did was wrong.
Exactly. It's the sacraments that give you that strength. And, nowadays, this whole idea of the spiritual friendship, like they were saying on the blogs and this and that, it's so abused that, this is good because after all, I don't want to be alone and okay, we're not going to, engage in sexual activity, but we just want to live together. Isn't that wonderful? And what she's saying is you just can't do that. You just can't turn off your emotions off and on like a faucet.
I guess what I'm confused about in their approach, and you just read what Dr. Lou's explanation, which was very good and which she discussed at her presentation, is on the one hand, if those brothers and sisters with same-sex attraction are admitting that the sexual behavior is wrong, why would they think that the erotic attraction is okay?
Yes,
Right.
and they celebrate it. I mean, they use the terms from the culture, gay, they say, I'm a gay Catholic. They also celebrate coming out. I came out this and this day. So if you understand that it's something that is a cross for many people that go through this, it is a cross, why would you celebrate something that is something that people are suffering from? Yes.
And that's why it's so important to talk about this, because as Dr. Lou said, and as we've been discussing, it's all over the blogs.
That's right. It really is. And, Astrid just read one little piece from Dr. Lou, and we saw the interview. But, in the book, like you have there, Astrid, Living the Truth in Love, like she responded, she said, well, read my whole essay. So if you really want to understand what Dr. Lou is saying, this book, Living the Truth in Love, which is available at the EWTN Religious Catalog, you can read her entire essay. So you can really get into what she's saying. Of course, so many of the other speakers there, their essays are in here also. And that's really going to help you understand this, because I think the culture is that it's okay. I mean, we have gay marriage. We have all this stuff right now in our culture.
Well, in addition to the same-sex attraction issue, you have all types of different living arrangements and all types of different relationships out there, multiple relationships, polygamy with these shows now that are so popular on TV, My Sister Wives, all these things that are just attacking marriage as God ordained it between relationships, between men and women.
That's right. And, as you know, Father Frank is our
Pastoral director.
Director for this series. And one of the things he pointed out to us when we were preparing for this show was reminding us about Pope Benedict wrote the encyclical Deus Caritas Est, God is Love. And in it, he distinguishes the different kinds of love, including eros. And he asks how Christianity affects this kind of love, and points out that in Christ, all that is human is taken up and purified, not snuffed out or rejected. We are body and soul. Our goal in growing in holiness is not to lose one or another part of our identity, but rather to get it all working in harmony and moving in the same direction under the grace of the Spirit. I mean, good point there.
I think sometimes we forget the healing power of God.
That's right.
And the transformative power of God. And we often talk about those brothers and sisters with same-sex attraction having a cross, but we all have crosses to bear. We can't single each other out, because all of us are called, again, every single person is called to live chastely. And as Dr. Lou was saying, she talked about the fact that, look, there are two ways you can go with this, with these feelings. It's either A or B, and there's nothing in between. And that's for everybody. It's not just for, again, those with same-sex attraction.
And let's remind the viewers that we have a wonderful apostolate in the church, which is a gift to everyone that is going through same-sex same-sex attraction, which is courage. The Courage Ministry is a wonderful way for you to go through this, meet others that also are wanting to live life in Christ, live chastity, and it is possible. And the profound happiness of the people that come out and talk about their testimonies of how courage helped them, that they found that pearl of great price, you know, in really embracing what the church teaches, is so powerful. So please look up courage. That's where we're going to find the authentic help for people with same-sex attraction.
And I think the other thing important to remember too is that, you know, all of us who think that we have to do things our way and hang on to our way of living, and this is what we want to do, and God has to bless this. We're not giving, again, God the chance to do that restorative work that He can do in our lives and can lead us to true happiness and fulfillment, which is what Dan Mattson talked about, who's been on our program before, and Rob and Teresa back, what they talked about in terms of how they are truly happy.
That's right. And if you listen, Teresa, you know, so many people we met at that conference who were in that lifestyle, the same-sex attraction lifestyle, and going from partner to partner. I mean, some of them said, oh, I had 15 partners. I had 20 different partners. I mean, relationship to nothing is working. And they kept going like the downward spiral, down, 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 until finally they had to say enough. They had to put a stop and say, I have to seek help.
It's similar to someone who is, you know, heterosexual and living a very promiscuous lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. It's not healthy.
Well, it's a very serious topic, and we really appreciate your viewership, and we will give you some great resources again when we come back after the break. We're talking about the topic of spiritual friendship, and this is the Catholic View for Women on EWTN. Stay tuned for our wrap-up right after these messages. Welcome back to the Catholic View for Women. Don't forget to check out our great website for all the resources and much more information on these topics and other shows, thecatholicviewforwomen.com. Again, this is a very sensitive topic that we're talking about, so we do want to remind you that viewer discretion is advised. We're talking about spiritual friendship among brothers and sisters with same-sex attraction and how we are to look at this. Kind of, I would say it's a new phenomenon in that area in terms of, you know, what some people are talking about on the blogs and in the Catholic media world. And Dr. Rachel Liu, whom we just heard from in the previous segment, is saying that this is not the correct way to approach, you know, life if you're struggling with same-sex attraction.
And the church says that this is a condition that is a disorder. It's very clear in the Catechism. It is a disorder. And this movement, spiritual friendship, basically is saying, well, it's wrong, but it's not a disorder. So it's a little baffling to understand exactly what it is. A lot of bloggers are talking about this, and it's just an approach. They're trying to integrate their condition in a way that, unfortunately,
they
is
love the
celebrating.
Church. They want to. They believe that they are approaching this correctly because they feel that they're still abiding technically by church teaching. But I thought it was important what Dr. Liu said is that chastity is not just about your actions. So it doesn't just mean just because I'm not sexually active with this person that everything's fine. It's, you know, it's the whole mindset of the way we live our lives, the way we look at brothers and sisters, the way we look at you know all of the human race in terms of how are we approaching these particular situations.
Well, no, another good resource again on this topic is the Catholic Medical Association. They have a great booklet called Homosexuality and Hope: Questions and Answers. And I'd just like to read another question and answer from here, because again, this is backed up with research from doctors. The question is, why is it important to help individuals with same-sex attraction? Well, the answer is, in addition to the emotional pain and social ostracism suffered by persons with same-sex attraction, recent well-designed research studies have shown several psychiatric disorders to be far more prevalent in teenagers and adults with same-sex attraction. These include major depression, anxiety disorders, substance abuse, conduct disorders, and suicidal ideation and attempts. While societal attitudes towards persons with same-sex attraction are blamed for these problems, studies done in countries where social acceptance is high, like the Netherlands and New Zealand, revealed similar trends. Numerous studies have found that persons with same-sex attraction are more likely to have been sexually abused as children and to have suffered from domestic violence and rape. In one study, 39% of males with same-sex attraction reported being abused by their same-sex partner. Men with same-sex attractions are at a high risk for infection with a sexually transmitted disease because they are more likely to engage in high-risk sexual activities with multiple partners. So, I mean, this is now from medical research, medical doctors saying why.
The point that they made about when you hear about the suicides and the depression rates, where the people say, or some people say that this is because of rejection, even in societies such as very liberal societies such as Netherlands, where it's highly accepted, the same things are occurring. That should tell us something about the natural design of who we are.
And how can we call this a good? How can we say that this is something to be celebrated, or that it's not disordered when it causes so much suffering?
So much suffering and pain. And again, the testimonies of the people we've heard from Courage, the Courage Ministry plays out this theme because they're not happy. They're going from relationship to relationship to relationship. And, it's like they said, finding love in all the wrong places. Because they're seeking some sort of love, but it's a false love. It's not authentic love. And so therefore they drift from partner to partner to partner. And also now that we have gay marriage in this country, people are saying, oh, well, look what's happening with that. Yeah, the only people that are making money off of gay marriage are the lawyers, because these gay marriages are not working. They're breaking up. I mean, I have some people I know in New York that got married and it lasted 6 months and they were heading to divorce court. And these were two people that were together, living together as homosexual partners for many, many years, and then they decided to marry and forget it. They're now divorced. And so even the speakers have said at the conference that so many of them have gone down that road from partner to partner. And of course, the risk of sexually transmitted diseases is high. It's so high.
I love that question. Why should we help people with same-sex attraction?
That's
and I'm reminded of Paul Darrow's testimony in the film Desire of the Everlasting Hills. I was so impacted by his talking about how he would give up everything, his modeling career, all the lifestyle, all the indulgences for just one Holy Communion, for the Eucharist. He had found happiness in
real
God, real happiness. So when we reach out, in this case, Mother Angelica was the one that reached out to him by the airwaves. He accidentally turned on the television, and there was Mother Angelica preaching, and the rest is history.
But no accident, right? Accidentally, but really not an accident.
Yeah, not an accident at all.
But divine appointment.
Yeah, so you're leading them to Christ. You're leading them to the real source of happiness.
And that's the thing. We talk about this, and I'm not saying that the three of us, but I'm saying the society and the world talks about these things as crosses and problems, yes, but at the same time, any one of us who goes through anything and who has lived, as we always say in our testimony, so stubbornly in the world, thinking that we had to have it our way, and yet when we submit and turn it over to God, this is the reason why the church has lasted 2,000 years, because it's the saving message of God. And Archbishop Chaput from the Archdiocese of Philadelphia gave such a great talk at the Synod on the Family in Rome, if you remember, talking about how we have to get back to believing in what God says, that yes, the church teachings are there for our benefit, and this is why we have our faith, and it is restorative. It is something that is going to save us. And look at all of us. We all have a brand new life because we submitted and said, Uncle, okay, you are so God, I am so not. We believe you, we love you enough to really submit ourselves fully.
Well, it's like you said in our testimonies, Teresa, all three of us that we went away from the church for so many years, and I guarantee you, if people who are listening right now, you have friends who are, living in these same-sex relationships, say to yourself, are they practicing their faith? Probably no, is the big answer, because they're away from God. Just like we created our own sinful life when we dismissed God in our lives and went down the wrong path. The same thing is true, because when you are practicing your faith and you're close to the sacraments and going to reconciliation, receiving communion, spending time in adoration. I mean, that was a big point too. The people who gave testimony at the conference said they go to adoration. Yeah. And they spend quiet time looking at Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament.
All right, we have a minute and 30 left, we're being told, so we need to quickly go through the catechism references and the other homework assignments.
Well, first of all, homework assignment number 1, visit the Catholic Catechism, of course, especially reading paragraphs 2337 through 2359 on chastity and homosexuality. Number 2, read Living the Truth in Love, which we've been referred through this whole program, which was edited by Janet Smith and Father Paul Check, gave all those beautiful essays from the conference, available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. Number 3, pray the healing prayer to St. Raphael, the Archangel, which is the angel prayer of healing, which we will have on our website. And of course, number 4, read the booklet, Homosexuality and Hope, Questions and Answers from the Catholic Medical Association, which is catholicmed.org. And this, I'm telling you,
Excellent.
every parish literature should
Yeah.
have this. It's a wealth of questions and answers.
Cathmed.org.
Cathmed.org. It's
And again,
great.
all of these resources are on our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com. Thank you so much for joining us and for allowing us to talk about this very sensitive but crucial topic that we're facing in the church and in the world. And that's what we try to do here, give you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. We'll see you next time on The Catholic View. And again, never, ever, ever doubt that God has the answer and is the answer, whatever situation we're going through. We'll see you next time on The Catholic View.